Anderson Cooper, CNN.
So where do we go from here? Joining us now from New York is an expert in African American studies, Imani Perry from Princeton University. Thank you for joining us. First of all, a basic generic question. These kids are being asked to choose between ugly, dumb, good, bad. Does that in itself, the nature of these questions, tell us something about society's expectations of kids?
Sure. Thank you for having me. Let me begin by saying that. Sure, the nature of the questions do reflect the way race operates in our society. Our children see the inequality that surrounds us every day, and the fact that we don't talk about it leads them to draw their own conclusions with some devastating consequences. So I think the study really offers an opportunity for us to open the door to really having deep discussions about race.
Is this myth or truth that children up to a certain age are actually colorblind and they don't recognize that a kid of their age might be a different race?
Well, actually, research suggests that children younger than 2 are already beginning to perceive race. So they're much more aware than we give them credit for from a very early age.
And was there anything that struck you about the findings that the older kids, particularly, you know, black kids, were able to say, I don't really care what color any of these people are?
Right. Yeah, I mean, that is the hopeful piece. I mean, we have come a long way over the past 40 to 50 years. We have generally embraced this principle that racial equality is supposed to be the norm. And so the next step is to learn, for all of us to learn how to act in ways that are consistent with those values. So the sign that there is a significant number of the kids who express those values shows that even though we have a long way to go, we have come a long way as well.
And forgive me, because this might be ignorance on my part, but how much is it possible that the children might be associating with light colors, with, you know, bright rooms, yellow? You know, kids' rooms are often, when they're small, always done up in bright colors. It's as they get older that people tend to gravitate towards the, you know, the blacks and the navies and the browns of this world.
Right. Well, I don't know to what extent, you know, color and value we can sort of apply generally to this scenario, but we do know that kids live in societies where they understand race, where they see race on an everyday basis in media images and on the street. And so it's the logical conclusion that when they make negative associations between people's bodies in certain colors, that it's a reflection of the world in which we live, because it's identical to what they see in the world we live. And
in the world we live, we were talking, and you, obviously, you're in New York, and we've been looking at this study in the United States, but if we were to try and extrapolate this internationally, for example, in areas like countries and continents like Africa and Asia, there are people who, and many advertisements for skin bleaching cream, skin whitening cream, and I wonder how much is this to do with, clearly, colonial past and the white man?
It absolutely. These are all the residues of the colonial past, of the past of Jim Crow, that we're still working through. Skin bleaching creams and their use in Latin America and Asia and Africa, as well as tight correlations between skin color and wealth in all of those places, reflect that we're still working through that history. And sometimes with quite devastating consequences. Skin bleaching creams have really terrible health effects.
Just a very final quick question about, I mean, obviously there's work for everybody here, but presumably one would argue that a lot of the self-esteem, if that's the right phrase, issues are to do with the black children less than the white children. So is there a question here also for the black community?
I think what the study suggests is that all children deserve the opportunity to be having conversations about race. If we want to create a society where they're able to actually live through the principles that we have of equality, we have to talk to all of them, and that there's no group that is beyond that or outside of that category. And hopefully we have those conversations across divides of ethnicity and race and class.
All right, Imani Perry in New York, thanks very much indeed for joining us.
Thank you for having me.